Hi, morning.
Morning. Sorry, I was getting food.
No worries. It occurred to me we scheduled this at a bad time for our eating.
Yeah. Oh, what the heck? You guys hear that?
What is that?
I don't know. Stop.
What are you having, Casey?
I made like a curry thingy yesterday, and then I also have other round two, which is chicken adobo, which my mom made.
Ooh, that's very nice. I just had canned peaches.
That's not enough.
No, I'm gonna have to get something in the middle. I was thinking I might run and get myself some toast to be on the side here.
Mm-hmm.
Any last questions or anything? It occurred to me we should have somebody watching the Slack, the EDJ Slack as we go. I can do that because I don't have anything official to do during the first session.
Sounds good.
Is everybody else on the EDJ Slack? Okay.
Hey,
Hello.
Hello.
I'm just trying to get this on my phone too.
I'm going to make a list of the docs that we're going to need just in the EU coordinating channel so we can all go to them.
Lourdes, I'm going to make you host for the beginning here so that you can do breakout groups. I'm going to make you co-host. Can you still do that?
I'm connected to my phone in case anything happens. Can people hear me okay?
Yeah. Do you have access to making the breakout rooms right now? No?
You need to make me host.
How about now? Excellent. So does everybody have everything they need? Anyone need to do like a last practice or lingering questions?
I went through and took out the doc FAQs because they were so old and I couldn't figure out how to rapidly update them. That's why that link disappeared, Lourdes.
Okay. I totally forgot it. Like,
There are so many little lingering things, you know, but I think it's okay.
Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed is we don't really have a space during the event to have people freely ask questions. So I was gonna make a note at the beginning and say, we're on kind of a tight timeline, but feel free to ask any questions in the chat and they'll be responded to.
and during the first breakout, I think I'll be floating, so I can address any of those questions.
Okay.
Okay, three of us have basically the same color blue shirt on. Just making a note of that.
Yeah.
I think Sarah's
They're all on top of each other for me, so it looks like coordinated.
Yeah, me too.
Robin's Egg Blue Day.
Also, Kelsey and Cole's shirt is semi-similar.
It's true.
weird.
The other day at my other job, we all wore white t-shirts. Every single person on the meeting. It was weird.
Just so we don't all drop links at the same time in the chat, who's going to drop the links for the various things? Lourdes, you good with that?
I'm opening everything up right now.
Does your update work, Cole?
Yes, I had to do a system update on my computer 5 minutes ago because it was being really slow, but now it's good. And I told all my roommates not to stream anything during the meeting.
I think for the data downloading and uploading, it might be good to tell people to keep their downloads folder open. Whoa, Kelsey, Ethernet.
You're really connected now. Mainline.
Finally.
If people want to change their names to model name conventions?
Oh yeah, how do you, in Slack? I mean, in Zoom, you can change your name in
Yeah,
real
if you-
time, is that a thing?
Yeah, if you hover over yourself and then the 3 dots in the corner, and then you can rename yourself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have people know who's in edgy and who isn't.
Oh, we want an edgy name. Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe you could change your name to like a more edgy name too. You could be like Maggie.
Maggie from Edgy.
What is crazy about Google Drive is you can't open something in a new tab. Can anyone?
Can.
I think it just automatically opens in a new tab.
Whenever. Oh. No. Whenever I click on a folder, yeah, I try to right click on it, and then it doesn't have the option to open in a new tab, and it opens in the tab that I'm in.
Are you on Chrome?
Yeah.
Very strange.
And like drag it out. That's what I usually do to make sure it's not opening on the same page.
Maybe there's like a setting that you could change in your preferences.
I'll investigate after her workshop.
Oh yeah, so I was at the ISEP thing yesterday briefly. Only 2 people came into my project Zoom link to check it out and talk to me, but they seemed enthusiastic about it. I didn't really get to know either of them very well, but they were like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'll look into it more later.
I talked to the activist from Kentucky, from Louisville, Kentucky yesterday.
Wait, what? That's exciting. Okay, sorry. Carry on.
Starting an organization called Data for Justice. So we're going to be on each other's radars. She is, I think, has a PhD in biology and public health, a master's in public health, and she quit academia to be a grassroots community organizer. So,
Love to see it.
posted her bio. She had a bio featured on Union of Concerned Scientists.
Lourdes, you don't have Edgy in your name.
Oh.
Stacey, could you drop the intro presentation link in the Slack?
In our Slack or in the EDJ Slack?
I think in our Slack for now. I can move it over.
Just as a heads up, I don't know if PM me on Zoom instead of Slacking me, I think, for this, because I'm gonna have trouble. I only have like 1 monitor, so.
And I'll be dropping links into the Zoom chat and the Slack?
I can do the Slack, Lotus.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Today's the day.
So 2 people are in the waiting room now.
Okay.
Should we keep people in the waiting room and then like then release
Yeah.
the room?
Yes. Leslie, thank you for registering for this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like if we were supposed to, and I didn't want to ask because it was like 8 or something. It was kind of late, and I was just like, I'll just do it.
I appreciated it. So you got the email this morning.
I think some of us edgy folks, if we're not needed in the first thing, don't necessarily have to be here. In case everybody's not wanting to be here for the whole 3 hours.
You've heard enough of my voice for one lifetime.
So what would be the time to come back for the part 2?
40.
Yeah.
1:30, I think. So
Okay.
To get caught up.
Lotus, just give me a heads up when you're about to release the floodgates. The great flood.
Well, the flood is 5 people.
that's why I was thinking some of us might want to go so that we're not like overwhelming them.
I think you underestimate the skittish. Like, we're not, sometimes people aren't going to be skittish when there's a lot of edgy people. They're just going to be excited.
All right, that's good to hear.
Wait, are we doing a check-in question with everyone or not? Just out of curiosity.
I think if it's 5 people coming in, that'd be cool. What do you think?
Oh wait, so wasn't it 15 people? Did we lose some numbers?
When are we letting people in?
It's 12:03.
Can you message them to say you'll let them in just a minute?
Should we wait until 12:05? I will see if I can message.
There's generally, I should have said this, there's generally like a big drop off between what people sign up for online and whether or not they actually show. So not so surprised if we only have 5.
We had about like 50, 60 people sign up for an event we had at school on a Friday, and then only like 5 showed up. Yeah,
Fridays are rough.
yeah, it was awful.
No, there's 4 people in the waiting room. Oh, now 5 again. Okay.
Maybe we should let them in before they leave.
Yeah. Let's let them in. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Awesome. So considering it's 12:05, I think it's time to get started. So welcome. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And start this off. Okay, cool. So welcome everyone that just entered. We're so excited to have you here. This is the Environmental Enforcement Watch. My name is Casey Greenleaf, and I am the one of the outreach and onboarding people for the Environmental Data and Governance Initiatives Project, the Environmental Enforcement Watch. And so we have a big 3-hour experience lined up today. And we're really excited to have all of you here. We've got a lot that we're gonna cover. And I'm really excited to see what comes of it. So just a couple things before we get started. If you just joined, please take a minute, and everyone also can introduce themselves in the chat. We don't have a whole lot of time today, so if you could introduce yourself with your name, your preferred pronouns, maybe your location, a fun salutation, whatever you want. And then also feel free to change your Zoom name to include your pronouns or anything you might want as well. And so to that effect, if you don't know how to do that, for technical assistance for this first session, Lourdes Vera is going to be doing the technical assistance. So you can Slack her or send her a private Zoom message, anything that you need, she'll be able to help you out. Thirdly, we have a Slack community. I saw some people join, but if you registered for this event, there should be an email in probably one of your informations folders or something like that. To join this Slack. So if you haven't done that, feel free to as well. That's how we'll stay connected after this event today. We also have limited time for questions, but feel free to ask anything that you want in the chat, and someone from EDGY will be getting back to you pretty quickly. So before we move into anything else, just gonna take us through the agenda really quickly. So we'll give a little bit of background on what the Environmental Enforcement Watch Project is, who we are today. We're going to take you through a demo of one of the tools that we'll be, or the tool that we'll be using for this event, called a Jupyter Notebook, and we'll do that with the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program from the EPA, which will make a lot more sense in a moment. And then we're going to split into breakouts based off of legislation, so Clean Water, Clean Air, and Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Again, will make more sense. We'll do a nice report back, see what we learned. We'll take a break, we'll come back together, and then we will break out into more topical breakout sessions, which will be storytelling, research and contextualization, data visualization, and if you want to, data science. And then we'll report back and we'll close, and we'll have you fill out a survey. So without further ado, so EEW, the Environmental Enforcement Watch, is a project that's been developed by the Environmental Data and Governance Initiative over the past couple of months with some wonderful collaboration from some of the members of Sunrise Boston. EDGY is an international network of 175 plus members, 80 different academic institutions, nonprofits, and it's comprised foremost by a grassroots volunteer effort. So back in 2016, when Trump took office, there was a widespread fear that a lot of this environmental information that we currently have the right to see was going to go away. And EDGY was formed through an effort to copy over the EPA's database and preserve and duplicate repositories of this public data to make the effort to preserve environmental health research and knowledge accessible in the future. And Sunrise, for those of us who are not familiar, is a national youth movement to end the corrupting influence of fossil fuel money in politics and elect true climate leaders, taken straight from the Facebook page of Sunrise Boston, the members of which are with us today. So why we decided to develop this project now comes from a couple of different factors. So the first of this is EDGY, over its time since 2016, has documented that violation of federal environmental laws are chronic and routine. They happen all the time. It's been happening ever since the programs were begun, but ever since 2016, enforcement has declined precipitously under the Trump administration. By 20% across all programs, enforcement has gone down. And during the COVID-19 crisis, enforcement is effectively completely on hold. So the numbers are ridiculously low in terms of enforcement and compliance. So all of this has been documented on EDGI's website. EDGI has testified in Congress to this effect. And there is a lot of literature available if you want to learn more on the EDGI website. So this is all quite dark, but there is fortunately some good news. And one piece of good news is that all of this violation data that I'm talking about right now is legally available to each and every one of us. Through the Community Right to Know Act, we have the ability to see all this enforcement, compliance, and violation data for the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. And EDGI has made this data easier for everyone to access. I'll talk a little bit about the specifics of that in a minute, but suffice it to say that we've developed this tool that makes it easier to find the information for our purposes. And another reason that we're here today is that this data, we can use it to inform our activism, to inform our organization strategies. And part of the goal of today's event is to see what's available and teach you all how to use these tools. And then hopefully you can take it back to your organizations and keep using it. So the EU project goals specifically are to investigate these trends in inspections, violation, and enforcement under the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Resource Conservation and Recovery Acts. And we can also look at emissions trends under the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program, which we'll do all together today. Another goal is that we want to analyze this environmental data. We want to answer questions posed by organizations, communities, researchers, activist groups. We want to provide a space for people to share their stories and bring this data into the real world, into people's personal experience. And we want to create these compelling and informative visualizations of this data so that we can translate it to our organizations, to our following, and perhaps to our legislators. So as I mentioned, this data is legally available to all of us. However, the EPA's website, the Enforcement and Compliance History Online, this is the mechanism through which the data is currently available to each and every one of us. And unfortunately, you can check it out yourself at echo.epa.gov if you want to. And there is stuff to learn there. However, only the last 3 to 5 years are currently visible through this interface. And just to note that these records go all the way back to the 80s. And these records going farther back are only available via complicated comma-separated value downloads. And these take up a lot of space on your computer, and to access them, one has to have, and make sense of them, one has to have a working knowledge of data analysis. And also this data is organized based on how the EPA itself works. And that is to say poorly for non-experts. So at risk of getting a little bit technical here, I'm just gonna try to take us through exactly how we can see this data. So as I mentioned, back in 2016, EDGI made a copy of the EPA's ECHO database. So this means that we have all of the up-to-date records. And I'm not gonna go into that little box there because that's a lot of coding that I don't even understand. But we are today going to be pulling from this database that EDGI copied through a data tool called a Jupyter Notebook. And it sounds a bit daunting, but really it's just a web page that allows us to see exactly what we ask it to tell us. And we'll be looking at the different programs through a Jupyter Notebook today. So how the EPA codifies this data is through the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Resource Recovery and Conservation Act, which is hazardous waste. And any facility that is emitting based off of these laws, or putting off some sort of effluent or chemical, they get a permit through the EPA. And then inspections occur, violations are found, and enforcement actions are issued. Sometimes money, sometimes a legal case, very rarely But these are the ways, the inspections, violations, and enforcement are the 3 ways that we can look at this data, because this is how it's available to us. So we are going to be making 2 different reports today, and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Pardo from Sunrise Boston, who's going to tell us a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Casey, for that introduction. And I also just wanted to say thank you to the entire EDGI team for all of the work you guys have done on this. It's been amazing to work with you guys, and just for being really thoughtful. So today we're going to be making 2 reports for MA 4th and MA 8th. As you probably know, Joe Kennedy is running for Senate, and we are endorsing Ed Markey. And we are also endorsing against Stephen Lynch in MA 8th. So as Casey mentioned, we have all of this data, but it's not super easy to read if you're not like a data scientist. But we have these Jupyter notebooks and these different tracks in the second half of the program that will allow us to contextualize and put together some really nice reports that we can then use to approach these representatives and say, hey, did you know that there was X violations or lack of compliance in your district, and what are you going to do about it? So it's a really good way to inform our activism and make sure that it's relevant to what's going on locally, and also can play up our own endorsements, and especially during this really important election season. And I will pass it back to Casey.
You're still muted, Casey.
Unmute. So we're going to split into some breakout groups based on these different pieces of legislation, the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. So Megan, Cole, and Sarah are going to take us through these different programs, and we're going to sign up in a minute. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Megan to tell us about the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. And we're going to be making a report all together to better learn how to do this, so that we can go into our breakout groups and have a better sense, but also to learn about greenhouse gas reporting in general. Go ahead, Megan.
Hey y'all, I'm Megan. So like Casey mentioned, we're gonna demo a notebook using greenhouse gas data that's available in ECHO. And this comes from the Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program. So this program requires emission sources like power plants that emit greater than 25,000 metric tons of CO2 or other greenhouse gases a year to report their emissions. And it also requires suppliers of fossil fuels whose end products would emit greater than 25,000 metric tons in emissions to report. So that means like a refinery in Texas reports the emissions that you might actually end up generating in your car in Montana or California or Texas. So these 2 main reporters, as well as a handful of other mandated categories, report 85 to 90% of annual emissions in the United States. And that remaining 10 to 15% is captured by the US Greenhouse Gas Inventory, which is a different annual report that the EPA oversees. So I'll pass it over to Malvika so we can actually look at some data.
Hi, I'm Malvika. I will be sharing my screen so I can show you guys what a notebook is and looks like. There we go. So this is a Jupyter notebook. It's just like Casey said, a document that allows us to look at and share live code. And so how to run this notebook is we're going to click on these little play buttons next to cells of code, just like this. This first cell just looks at Python library, so it's bringing in resources that we can use to analyze the data. And I know a lot of this code can look really daunting, but it's really just the behind the scenes of the charts we're going to be producing. First, we can choose a congressional district to look at. To visualize and get a better sense of what the districts are in Massachusetts, we have a map that you can hover over. We're going to be looking at Congressional District 4 for this demo. And I can choose that by selecting it from this drop-down menu. If you are comfortable with the Jupyter notebooks, you might want to look at District 8 while I look at District 4. This cell will show us what kind of facilities the EPA tracks in this district and across Massachusetts. Keep in mind that some of these cells might take a while to run because they are going through so much data to get us what we want to look at. There we go. So this shows us that how many facilities are in Massachusetts and how many facilities are regulated under the different acts. So under RCRA for hazardous waste, clean water, clean air, and greenhouse gas emissions. Today, right now, we'll be looking at greenhouse gas emissions. So it's important to note that there are 14 facilities in this district. This cell is going to show us like zooming in on the data. So right now we're looking at greenhouse gas emissions, but again, we can be looking at any of these. So once we run this, we can choose from the drop-down menu. I'll keep it at greenhouse gas emissions. And then we can begin to chart trends. This cell will show us the first up to the first 20 facilities, but since we saw that we just have 14, it'll show us 14 of the facilities. While this is running, I can show you guys again that there's a lot of information here to go through and get a better sense of what all of these acronyms mean and how we're going to use them in the reports as a whole. There we go. Here we can look at a chart that compares greenhouse gas emissions in this district to the rest of the state. And then we can map the facilities within Congressional District 4. Again, this will just show us 14. So here we can see that Dominion Energy, this PowerPoint plant, is huge in terms of emissions, and that'll be really helpful for when we're making a report, so something to look at. This chart I can just copy paste into a report, so I'll copy this image and paste it into this slide deck, which is looking at this congressional district. Just like that. Back to the notebook. This cell is going to look at all the different facilities and it'll map it out so we kind of get a sense of where they are within the district. This is really helpful because we can hover over the different facilities and get a sense of which ones are which. So let's say I want to look at the Bellingham power plant. I can click on that. And for this one, since it's not an image, we can't copy and paste it. So you can take a screenshot of the map we're looking at. And I'll just take a screenshot of this. I'll save it to my desktop and then I can go into the report again and insert an image from my computer. There we go. Might take a second. Okay, perfect. So now we have both images of the chart and the map within the slide. I can arrange them. And in terms of accessing your files, it's not too hard. We want to click on the Files tab in the menu. So it's this folder thing on the left-hand side. And you'll see a district program data CSV right here. And if you don't see it, you can click on this refresh button. But once you do, you can click on these three dots right next to it and download that file. It'll download right onto your laptop. And we can drop that into a Google Drive folder we'll give you, which looks at all the CSVs. And once that uploads, we have all the data we can look at for the reporting. So that's it. That's the notebook. And if you need any help, feel free to ask one of us.
Cool. So now we actually are a bit ahead of schedule. So I wonder if everyone wants to go in and look at this greenhouse gas reporting program, or if we should just go straight ahead and spend more time in the breakout groups. We could also open up for questions if anyone has any questions at this point.
And I also just dropped the link to the Getting Started document like in the chat, so that's there.
So if nobody has any questions right now, edgy folks, do we think we should just move ahead or into the breakouts, or spend a little more time on the greenhouse gas reporting program? Look at the other district.
I mean, if we're ahead of schedule, we might as well get that data for District 8 since we're also making that report.
Cool. So let's have, Malvika, do you want to share your screen and see what happens with District 8?
Yes, I can do that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so right here we've run these cells of choosing a credit. So this is all the districts again. And here we can choose District 8 and run all the following cells, which will again look at this facility compared to the rest of Massachusetts. This one takes a little bit because it's running through a lot of data. So there's 6 facilities reporting greenhouse gas emissions here. So a little bit less. Again, we want to look at greenhouse gas emissions, so I can run this and then chart trends again. You can look through all this code if you're familiar with coding, but it's really not necessary to understand the graphs that follow. This one's going to look at District 8 compared with Massachusetts. So let's run through that. This will show us a chart. I can also save this chart and put it into the report if I need to. And then this one will map all the facilities just like before. So this is the first 6, or all 6, and it looks like Fall River Generating Station is the largest emitter. Another thing to note with the charts is this number so you understand how many millions we're looking at. We're gonna map the facilities once again. So this is District 8. We can look at the 6 different facilities, where they are, how big of an emitter they are. And again, to access these files, we can open up our file folder, download the second one.
And just as a little aside, I noticed that the trends in greenhouse gas emissions for this district seemed pretty flat over time, whereas in District 4, we saw a kind of drop off for the district in greenhouse gas emissions in the past couple years. So in the research and contextualization track in the second group of breakout rooms that we're going to be getting into, those are the kinds of questions we can look into, like why are those trends different across these different congressional districts?
Yeah,
Cool.
so this is District 8.
Awesome. Thank you, Malvika, for doing that.
Of course.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen again. Oh, I think that's all of you, actually. Let's try a different way. Okay. So now that we've gone through the demo, it's time to sign up for a breakout in the event main doc. And if you haven't done this already, you can just click here and it'll pop you down to the sign up sheet. And we can try to keep it somewhat equitable if we can. I'll sign up here.
And during these breakout groups, if you have any questions, you can Slack message me in the Sunrise Boston Slack or the Environmental Enforcement Slack channels, because the Zoom chat isn't that great with breakout rooms. So we might want to shift the conversation there to Slack.
If anyone needs help getting into that Slack, we can send you the invite.
Yeah, I'll put an invite link right now into the document and into the chat.
All right, so I'm seeing, it looks like we're just, has everybody signed up? I think we're almost there. So Lourdes is going to put us into breakout groups. And then we will depart.
Okay.
In 45 minutes.
I'm just dropping the invites back in.
Maybe one more person could go into the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. There we go.
Oh, Casey, I actually have Cameron with me. We're in the hazardous waste breakout group.
Awesome.
Are people done signing up?
Yes.
Cool. I'm gonna. It's gonna take me a minute to make these breakout rooms, so go crazy.
You can take this time to do the 20/20 eyeball test thing. Every 20 minutes, you have to look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds, and that's good for your eyes. It prevents screen out.
Oh, and if you didn't sign up for a breakout room, then you're going in a random room.
While you're waiting, you can check out the background PowerPoints for the program in your breakout room. You can see they're linked in the doc here, background on this program. It's basically just a little PowerPoint that tells you a bit more about the program that you're going to be looking at.
I'll share my screen again just so you can see. So this, if the things you might want to open up in each of your breakout groups is the notebook here. The reporting slide you'll be putting information into.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I have everything set.
Okay.
And if anybody has any questions or wants to change breakout rooms, then you can come right back to the main room and I can help you. All right, are we ready? Set, go. Hi, Christine. Hello?
think we were early. Wait, do we have 15 minutes left? Hold on. Oh no, people are coming back.
Hello again.
Hello, is this everyone? All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm gonna share my screen again. That's very interesting. All right, so we're gonna do some share backs. And if I can get my screen sharing bar to go away, I will be able to. There we go. Should we start with MA4 and we can compare across programs?
I think we might need a minute to load those in. Oh, Megan, did the slides load up okay?
I'm going through and updating them now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it in 8th district or 4th, whatever Cole isn't doing. And I'll drop the PowerPoint for Congressional District 4 into the chat.
So while we wait for those to load, if everyone would be so kind as to go fill out a feedback form, just because we're fresh right out of that breakout. So we can access that by either clicking this in the PowerPoint or going here below this first sign up sheet and filling out the session 1 feedback form. And it'll take us to this form here. And there's some technical feedback, and then also we can get excited for the next session, and it's going to auto populate, so we'll get to see what everyone's excited to investigate here. But we're not going to see this feedback. This is all anonymous.
It looks like slides 15 and 17 in the District 4 presentation, there's an issue with the linking.
We just didn't fill out those slides.
Oh,
So
okay.
it looks that way, yeah.
For now.
All right, are we good to go with the shareback? Are people still filling out that feedback form?
I think our congressional slides are all loaded.
Oops, I was muted. All right, so clean water folks, do you want to let us know what happened in the 4th district, what you might have found?
Yeah, so when we looked, we did a lot of comparison of violations and enforcement and found a lot of discrepancies. We were specifically interested in this Texas Instruments facility in District 4, which had a pretty severe violation, but no enforcement action was taken against it. And we thought that was pretty interesting comparing the facilities that did have an enforcement action. Like, for example, a high school in District 4 had one of the highest enforcement actions or like highest penalties, but they really weren't that high on violations. And then we also just saw a general decrease in inspections.
All right, how about clean air?
So we also found some interesting discrepancies between violations and penalties. There were like a total of 5 violations in the district for clean air, and those were related to 5 separate facilities, so no facility had more than 1 violation. But there was really high penalties for a couple of facilities, including this Dominion power plant, but they weren't listed as having any violations, despite having the highest penalty amount. And most of the top facilities in terms of highest penalty payers were not listed as being among the violators of the Clean Air Act. So maybe that has to do with when the penalty, like when the enforcement actions were initiated versus like if they are related to violations that happened before 2010, or if they're related to like, I don't know, less significant violations that wouldn't be captured.
Cool. What about RCRA?
So for RCRA, you know, we noted that there's been just statewide, if you go back for the statewide trends, there's actually been a statewide increase in RCRA violations between 2016, 2017, and then trending downwards a lot by 2020 with like not a lot of probably lack of reporting, and then a slight increase in RCRA violations in this congressional district. So it'd be interesting to know what's driving the increase in statewide violations, which had otherwise been trending downwards. And then inspections, we saw like a slight increase in inspections. And we had questions about a particular facility called EQ Northeast, and not sure what it is and why it has so many inspections. And then if you look at the enforcement map, back one, those grayed out dots are places where they've had some kind of violation, but no penalty associated with it. So the penalties just statewide are pretty low for RCRA in general. And most places with violations are not getting penalties levied.
All right, and how about 8? Going back to clean water. Did this not load?
No, we just didn't finish filling it out because we were looking at other stuff. But Eric, do you have anything from District 8?
I accidentally put Texas Instruments in District 8, even though it's in District 4. So totally ignore that note. But if we go to the graphs and charts, those should be here. Yeah, we just scrolled through a bunch of things, but yeah, I think as Megan noted, we compared inspections between the 4th and the 8th and found that, you know, inspections have dropped over the past 10 years. And so I'd be curious to think a little bit more about why that would be and what implications that has. We found that some Clean Water Act penalties, like sometimes the 8th district accounts for all of the penalties in the state. Okay, there you go.
Sorry. All right, how about clean air?
So we found no clean air violations in the district, which was odd. But I think inspections were relatively low, but pretty consistent. It looks like there was a slight increase in inspections from 2017 to 2019. Or maybe it went up in 2018 and then down again in 2019. But and then it's weird because there's penalties, but there's no inspections. I mean, there's no violations, but there are penalties,
Yeah.
which is confusing for sure.
There's nothing to map at all.
That is very strange. It'd be also interesting to see like how many places are regulated and what their chances are of ever getting inspected. Because with the Clean Air Act, in order to get a violation, you kind of have to have an inspection. It's not like with the Clean Water Act where the violations come from what you've recorded that you've actually emitted into wastewater. The Clean Air Act violations tend to follow an EPA inspection. So if they're never getting inspected, they would also never have violations. So it might be interesting just to do like a ratio for how few inspections actually happen.
How about RCRA?
RCRA, our key finding was looking at this place called Syn Oil or CYN Oil. I don't know. It's in Easton. They have the most violations by far in the district, and they have the most inspections too. But it looks like they don't have the highest penalties. I didn't fill out this enforcement thing. Sarah and Cameron, do you have anything to say about this storage and waste management facility?
I don't think we had time to look at that one.
That's kind of interesting. Clean Harbors is a waste cleanup place. So it's interesting that they should also have the enforcement violations. Or the
Also, fun fact, their Clean Harbor CEO is on the board of trustees of Northeastern University.
That sounds about right. So that, I mean, I think that's an interesting next level of investigation for the research and contextualization is, you know, who owns these companies and are they giving money to anyone?
Yeah, and one final thing to note is that for District 4, the top violator was also in the same town, Eastern.
All right, well, we have 1 minute to 1:30. So awesome job, everybody. We made it through session 1. So before we go, I just want to leave this up as people are on break. So in this next session, we're going to be breaking out into 4 different potential groups. So the first one is storytelling, reactions, and question generating. So mostly it'll be sort of going through and sharing our experiences and stories and bringing this data to life. And that'll be with Leslie. There will be an option to go and look at more of the data science. So if you want to like check out the coding behind these notebooks or try to discover, you know, what's going on here, or you want to, you know, fix a bug or something like that, you can do that with Steve Hansen. We'll be doing research and contextualization, using investigative skills. We'll just see who these CEOs are and figure out what's behind the data. And bring some life to this in a different way. And that will be with that'll be with Megan and Cole. And then in 4, we'll be using new and familiar softwares to build maps and like make this data look really nice. And maybe even make a meme or something like that if you want to do that. That will be with Lourdes. So I'll leave this up as we're broken. Oh, I don't realize that this isn't even shared. So that's silly. Can you guys see this now? Okay. So I'll leave this up while we're on break, and we'll have some time to sign up for these next breakouts when we come back in 10 minutes.
Should we see if there's anybody who's just joined who wants to kind of onboard? I don't think there is. I saw Dietmar
I
appear.
just joined, yeah.
Hi, Dietmar.
Hi. So now we are splitting into groups. I guess I'm gonna be with Lourdes in the same group.
I think that would be
But
great.
I
Yeah,
don't
if you
know
join
what-
the data viz
Uh-huh.
track with Lourdes.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And Dietmar, if you want to look through the report that we've created so far, do you have access to those?
The Google Docs,
Yeah. And
Clean Air Act, that's the last one I see.
Yeah, you can also look into the congressional district reports, and those will be in there as well. It's on the first breakout sign up.
The first link that I see is from Lourdes at 1 p.m. What is this? Okay, congressional district. Right.
So it seems that Clearac is the only one that dropped their data, or unless people, did anyone from other groups put their data somewhere in the Google Drive?
Frankly, I didn't even do that. So
Water
I
actually
get
knows.
no credit for that, but I will do it.
What's this?
I can work.
Putting
want-
our CSVs from the Jupyter notebooks into the CSV folder. I know it's my job to make sure that happens.
And I'm supposed to help you.
But I realized I don't have all the Jupyter notebooks open, and having run them, that I can't get the CSVs by myself. Here's the folder.
Thanks.
Lourdes, do you want to make me host whenever you have a chance?
You want? Oh yeah, to make the groups. Okay.
So do you have any feel for how many people will be in the data science? Anybody?
Not sure yet, but people are going to fill out the sign up, I think, Steve.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody back? I guess I can't really see if anyone's back right now.
I realized that from the RICRA group, we forgot to move our data over. So if anybody who ran the violations and enforcement for District 8 could move the data into the right folder, I would super appreciate that.
All right. So now that we're back, a couple things have shifted, nothing too drastic, but hopefully you had a good chance to take a look at this. So I hope everyone had a really nice 10 minutes. If you've just joined, which I don't know, I think maybe just Dietmar, but if you've just joined, you can take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat. And then feel free to change your Zoom name. And now instead of Lourdes, you can Slack or send a private Zoom message to me for any technical problems or just random questions, and I'll answer them. So we're going to move into breakout groups now: storytelling, research and contextualization, data visualization, and data science. And you can sign up for these in that same document that we've been working in. Just trying to find it here. We have to reshare. Okay. So in this doc, we can sign up for these right here. Has everybody signed up? Has anyone not signed up? Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to split everyone into breakouts. So I'm going to stop sharing here. So bear with me as I split y'all up.
Hey, Casey, should we be coming back at 2:50 or 3?
I think 2:50.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna change that.
Someone is listening to really loud funk outside. The background music that I have.
I can't hear it through your mic.
I feel like we should have some kind of music for these lulls.
Funk seems appropriate.
Can anybody beatbox?
I knew someone who's a professional beatboxer. Like he was on a show. What is it? Electric? No, wait. It's a PBS show. Electric Company. And he beatboxed.
We should hire him.
So there's definitely some people that haven't signed up. I don't know if everyone is like here, but
Storytelling would be a good place to join if anybody hasn't found a group.
Data science is hopping.
Yeah.
I can't find Steve. Steve, I can't find you. I see you, but I can't find you. I'm stressed.
It is stressful to have to do all that real time.
I just don't understand.
It doesn't take off people as you assign them?
No. I just move them. Oh dear.
You could share screen, Casey, and we could take a look together.
I don't know if I can. Oh, yes, I can. Does anyone see Steve?
Oh, we can't see your Zoom drop down, Casey.
Yeah, I don't think it's
If
gonna
you move
let us.
everybody. Steve will be the last person remaining, and you can move him then.
Yeah, maybe someone can. I'm just gonna turn my camera off because I'm stressed.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, that's a good point. Eric says he could set up a separate Zoom for data science as a last resort.
Should we get the other breakout rooms going in the meantime?
Yeah, couldn't data science just remain in the big room?
Oh.
That's true.
Yeah, why don't we just try that?
Okay, I'm gonna have to do. I was trying to do a little craziness. Hang on here. Oh, here's Steve. There we go. I found Steve.
Just call me Waldo.
Oh, Kelsey's cat.
It's funny because Waldo is always like disguised with things that look like his outfit. And Steve, me, Megan, and Sarah have similar blue outfits.
True.
How's it going, Casey?
Almost there.
Cool.
This has been wild. This is a fun experience. Having a great time.
Well, breakouts officially start at 1:50, so it's only 1:49.
Oh, good. All right, so I think we're good. I'm gonna double check it one more time just to make sure. Alex, I have you in, I'm putting you into research or no, I'm putting you into storytelling. Is that okay? Okay. All right, great. Here we go. If it doesn't work, just come back and I'll try to do it again. Very well. Yeah.
No, Leslie.
Oh, I had to admit her. I understand now. Hi, Leslie. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
What
Sorry.
happened?
My Wi-Fi just I need a call and like get it fixed because it constantly fails, and so it just kicked me out of the Zoom meeting.
Oh,
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, we just moved on to 6 and started filling things out.
Nice.
We only have 2 minutes left anyway.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
This kind of work is very tiring.
Yeah.
Ah. Be great if we could layer the icons on top of the circles, but the circles come first.
I know. Put it. Dang it. Send back.
Can you send things to the back in this? Whoa! I guess it went way back.
Let's see, and then I have to send the other one back, but I have to unlock it. Oopsie. There we go. Yeah, I definitely make a note of that. I didn't realize. Weirdly enough, for some of the sticky notes, I think it does, but for some it doesn't. I guess in the other steps it did. Some of them.
All right, 30 seconds till everyone comes back.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Hello, Cole. Hi, Megan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. How'd it go?
Well,
Good.
I feel like for research, it's going to be a lot of post-event work put into that track, but we definitely got a good start.
Yeah, there's so much, but we learned a lot, I think.
By EPAs.
Or
Right.
somehow distribute snacks.
That's the one thing you can't do on an online event. No snacks.
Yeah, no coffee.
All right, everyone, welcome back. That was great. At least it was in the storytelling track. I hope everyone else had a similarly pleasant time. Would anyone feel moved over the next 5 minutes to give us a little report back on how that went? Just popcorn.
Well, we found some interesting stuff about these representatives. So if you look at the District 4 report slides, slide 7, you can see that Joe Kennedy is the Vice Chair of Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee for the Energy and Commerce House Committee. And he's also on the Energy and Health subcommittees of that Energy and Commerce Committee. So those are important positions in terms of environmental protection. And despite that position, only 6% of the bills he sponsors are related to environmental protection. So that's something.
Yeah, similar story in District 8. Stephen Lynch, who's a Democrat, has been in and out of office actually since 2001, just representing different districts, but he's been in this district since 2013. And he's on the House Committee on Transport and Infrastructure, and 0 of his bills in the last 10 years have related to the environment. And then I think Sarah and Cameron found some interesting stuff too.
We were, kind of looking in more detail into Sin Oil Corp, which had the most violations in District 8. And we looked into it more and saw that the last violation reported by the EPA was in 2016, but it showed they kept having violations, every single quarter up until now. And it turns out those are self-reported violations, which is kind of interesting because of what they do like waste storage and transportation. They have to do self-reporting. But anyways, they haven't had very much in the way of penalties. So it's kind of strange. And then we looked at also at Clean Harbors, the treatment and storage facility. And that had the most penalties of District 8. And we were just like trying to see more detail about what they do, what they are polluting. They have been pretty consistent about polluting lead and
Ethylene glycol.
ethylene glycol is on the rise now. PCBs have kind of stopped. We were trying to find out more information about like what they're doing, where is the lead coming from, but because they do manage and clean up for various companies, they're sort of a service that does that. It's kind of hard to figure out where that's coming from. So yeah.
Interesting.
That's super interesting, particularly the lead. And if you guys want some health effect stuff on ethylene glycol, we've been looking at that chemical for its use in fracking. Yeah, it is like antifreeze. It's just crazy. Like we were talking about like ironies of capitalism in the storytelling group. And, it's one of these ironies that the cleanup company should then also have the RCRA hazardous waste violations. Anyway.
I mean, I worked in an environmental cleanup company for a summer for an internship. And it turned out that what we did was we would take contracts from like the Navy and stuff, and then we would put monitors out, and then we'd just record what was happening as it naturally reduced over time.
It's amazing that you can make income on that.
What about some of the other tracks? DataViz?
So we started out, I think it took a minute to like figure out exactly what we wanted to do. And we started out with some recommendations for data science on organizing the data and pre-cleaning it so that DataViz can do stuff with it. And we created some Google Sheets and explored the data that way. Let me link you to the DataViz presentation.
While you do that, I would encourage everyone to put all their materials in the Slack so that everyone can take a look at it after this ends.
And yeah, it was mostly like idea generating of starting DataViz projects. So the first slide I put together that was, let me share my screen. It was the question, or part of the question that in the Clean Air Act list of how do we compare districts. And so I started by looking at % minority and the number of facilities that had inspections. Yeah, the title should say inspections, under the hypothesis that maybe areas with less minorities get more inspections or vice versa, to see if there really is, if there is a difference. And it doesn't seem like there is much. It actually more, well, see like the more facilities are getting inspections where there's less % minority.
Does that graph control for the number of facilities?
And that's what the next step would be.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a start to, I think, one visualization exploration. I just put the info from Wikipedia about the congressional districts and maps next to it. So that might be good material for a report. And then Dietmar, do you want to go over your infographic idea?
So another thing, we started by looking over the report and trying to figure out, what works and what can be improved in terms of the data representation. And there are a lot of these bar charts that are ranked that give you, the facility with the highest number of violations, highest number of penalty, and so on. But this is a little bit hard to judge without the context. So one idea was, maybe I can share the screen. Desktop 2. Okay.
I just stopped sharing. If you wanted to share.
So am I sharing? No?
No.
No? Okay. Let me do it. Yeah. Okay, somehow I'm not able to share because of my Mac OS security preferences. Maybe Lourdes, can you maybe go to the DataVis Google Drive folder and maybe open first the file innerjoin_table so we can see that.
And maybe just so we can, oh, it's already open.
So with the data sets, I think it's, so one thing we discussed is that it's really important to look at penalties, violations, and inspections always in context with each other, because it's not so much who has the highest number of violations, but what is the company who has the highest number of violations, also the company has the highest number of penalties and inspections. So if you sort it, for example, by violations, so those are the 13 companies that are the share that are in all the 3 data sets. And if you sort them by number of violations, you see that the company with the highest number of violations has 0 penalties, and a company with a very high penalty has 0 violations. So those things are not always directly correlated. And I think in order to understand and explore this, one thing we would recommend to, instead of basically just ranking each individual, to look at them together. And there are in this folder, there are a couple of other things. Maybe we can look, maybe can you open another one, which is the last file that is called insp vs violations. Yeah, so basically this is just a scatter plot where you see the number of violations by the number of inspections, percentage of minority and the size of the penalty. And you see, there's some correlation, but it's not really very striking. So thinking about ways how to tease these things out. And one thing that is always interesting if you look at these scatter plots is what happens to these outliers. There's one with a very high number of violations, what's going on here, and things like that. There are a couple of other visualizations in there, but I think for now this might be sufficient.
It's really great, Dietmar. It's cool.
So I know that it's 3:01 now. So, oh, Lourdes, you're muted. I don't know if you're trying to say something.
I'm just really sorry this is taking so long, but Kira also made a really awesome Canva infographic.
Okay, yeah, just super fast. I just put together a couple of the different highlights from the presentation. It's super easy, and it's just a nice way to highlight a lot of information in kind of a more digestible way. If I did it again, I'd probably use some different facts, but yeah.
Ooh, so cool. Data science, do you have a quick 1 or 2 sentence highlight reel for us?
Well, that's probably all we could come up with. It was mainly, we were looking at the structure of the the Jupyter Notebook, and then also the data and how we would try to put things together, and how poorly linked the EPA data is to be able to look at things like looking at violations and penalties together out of the data sets. That's about as far as we got.
How about storytelling? I can say something unless Leslie, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think we're probably gonna say the same thing, honestly. We did for the photo portion of it, we asked people to bring photos with them and put them on the mural that we made. And weirdly enough, all three of us who put a picture in a mural, it was all kind of like family related, and yeah, they were just pictures regarding how we were personally affected, our families were personally affected by the lack of environmental enforcement. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And Casey, anything to add?
I think that's perfect. So we are at the end now. There's one last step before we fully end, and I just want to take a minute and thank everyone for putting in this time today. This is a big commitment out of a Saturday, and so yeah, I just commend everyone for being on this. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too. And so the last thing is we have an exit survey, and this would be incredibly helpful for the EU planning folks if people could fill this out. I just linked it in the doc, or I linked it in the Zoom chat, so you can click it really quick. And yeah, if we'll keep this Zoom open until people are ready to go, but thought it'd be great if we just all took a minute to fill it out right here together, so that we don't like put it off and like never think about it ever again. I also want to provide a space for like any follow-up questions if people want to drop emails, or if people have any follow-up thoughts for today's event. This is a good space to do that now.
Can I offer just a quick thanks to the Sunrise folks? This is our first try at one of these events with a partner, and so we really appreciate you giving it a try with us, and it would be super helpful to hear your feedback so we can figure out like how to make this really useful for collaborators.
And yes, bumping what is said in the Slack. Yeah, edgy folks, definitely fill out the feedback form. I think we can all learn something from it. And yes, please stay around in the Slack. We can post all of the results from today in that Slack. I'll also send a follow-up email. Yeah. So I guess I can let you all go. I don't want to go. I feel I have to stay home now.
Yeah, do Sunrise folks have any final like thoughts or like directions you might think about taking what we came up with today? It seems like it might need some more work to turn it into something more tangible, but I'm curious what ideas you might have for that.
Or we were thinking of having a sort of open hour where folks can bring their projects that they started here and just have a co-working session. As you know, if you did find findings during this workshop and say, oh, I want to exploit that more and make it into a report for my Congress person or others, that one idea that's floating in the air is, for us to just have an hour over the next week or so.
I'd like to be part of that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a more thoroughly developed congressional report is like a worthy project to pursue.
Yeah, this seems like something that would be great to report back to Sunrise Boston folks. I guess from my personal point of view, I joined because I was just interested in learning new things. I don't necessarily see myself as having a lot of capacity to like, keep doing this type of analysis. But if there were little ways that I could kind of like join for something that had a specific purpose and a specific outcome that we wanted, then yeah, it would be great to stay involved.
Maybe if it's just an infographic, like the one that Kira started putting together.
It would also be interesting just to look at the other districts in Mass. I'm really interested in why the violation trends went up, and it's like clearly not in the districts that we looked at. So I'd be interested to figure that out.
Well, I don't want to keep people. We're already 8 minutes over, and it's been a big day. So I want to release people from this meeting. And again, thanks everybody, and hope to stay in contact. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Saturday.
Thank you so much for organizing this. This is really great.
Thank you, Casey.
This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.